Hey, Waffle Fam. This is your host and friend, Sage of Sorcery here for episode number 8 of the Waffle Press. Very excited to be here to chat with you today. We have a ton to talk about, particularly pertaining to that interesting boat ride that we had on our way to Waterdeep. I do think it was a really good idea to have not only the boat ride and the trip, but to have it all in one episode, you know. A lot of the times, I think it's very tempting to get caught up in nautical combat, to have, you know, Sahuagin, or however you pronounce that D&D monster, however you pronounce it, to attack the ship, you know, or here comes the Triton, here comes the Kraken, or the giant squid, or whatever. So it was interesting. I think that ship encounter could have gone differently depending on the time. I don't know. Part of me wonders about that, about where Chris was going with that. But anyway, lots to talk about for Dice Camera Action episode 94. And of course, at the end of this, segment of talking about Dice Camera Action, we're going to jump into the bird droppings segment. We had the season finale of Trapped in the Birdcage. So I do want to talk a little bit about that and some of my thoughts on that, about where the show needs to go, what I thought Holly did really well, and what the players did well that was interesting. But before I go ahead and launch into any of that, I did want to give a shout out first to Anna Prosser Robinson and tell you that my daughter has just started watching Dice Camera Action. She's 11 years old, which is about the age that I would probably let her watch Dice Camera Action. There's a little bit of language, but there's nothing in there that I think would be too traumatic for her that she hasn't seen in a PG-13 movie, maybe, or that she hasn't heard at school. Not that I want to reinforce things that she's not ready for, but I just felt like as a father that my daughter was ready, that she could listen to it, and she's heard me listening to it often enough, so she's certainly finding herself all kinds of interested in it. Anyway. So I reached out. I was, looking at something. I was about to maybe advertise on Twitch that the Waffle Press was coming up for episode 8, and I told Shannon that I would reach out to Anna and tell her that Shannon's watching the show and she loves it. So I sent this tweet. I said, "Hey Anna, my eldest daughter just started watching Dice Camera Action, and she thinks you might actually worship Lathander. Evelyn and Strix are her favorite, not the Yucky Boys yet. She's also really embarrassed I'm tweeting you, but she hopes you respond. Raffle, hashtag DCA generations." And it's kind of funny, too, because if you think about it, stories that resonate and reverberate, I mean, how many of us are going to have our kids watch Dice Camera Action, when they get old enough, or when they become interested in fantasy, or, how many of our kids have seen us watching Dice Camera Action? So it's a funny thing to think about. I don't know that, Holly and Jared and Anna and Nate think about it. I'm sure Chris does, because Chris is old, so sorry, Chris. I'm old too, bro. I'm pushing 40 here, and I know you're way past me. So anyway, that being said, it's interesting to me to think about it. And Anna responded very kindly, and she said, "Haha, please tell her thank you for watching, that I'm so glad that she likes Evelyn, that the boys aren't too yucky once you get to know them, and that even though Lathander is make-believe, having faith is important." That was really nice of Anna to respond. I said she's going to freak out and squeal at having any contact with you. Thanks, Anna. Special shout-outs for you on the Waffle Press today. And so here's the shout-out that I said that I would be giving. And I will tell you that my daughter did squeal when I turned to her and I said, hey, Shan. I was like, Anna responded. And she went bounce, bounce, bounce. And then it was, and all kinds of high-pitched, feminine screeching and whatnot. Anyway, I laughed really hard. But she was really excited. So thank you to Anna. One of the things they say is don't meet your idols. Don't meet the people that you look up to, because they frequently turn out to be less, I guess, than you've built them up to be in your mind. And the thing is, I have a lot of respect for Anna personally, for the way that she conducts herself online, and for also the way that for the character that she portrays, and for her creative passion. Now, she could be loco en la cabeza, and I would not know, from Adam. I would not know, personally, because I've never met her in the flesh. But I will say, even if I saw her doing something that I would find questionable, it's okay, because people, on the whole, people are not the sum of one bad moment with them. people that have a bad moment with a fan, the William Shatner response even maybe with a fan, that's not the sum of who they are. And just because they have a bad moment at a con, or they have a bad moment on the mic, or or you have a bad interaction with them, doesn't mean you can't still love them. So anyway, just the thought that came to my head. Don't meet your idols. Well, why not? They're people too. And if it's not what you hoped it would be, it doesn't mean you can't appreciate their art any less. Although I think Tom Cruise is a nut job, and a professional nut job. And the more I've learned about him, the harder it's made to watch the Mission Impossible movies. So there are limits to even that, I think. Anyway, okay, so that's my shout out to Anna. Thank you, Anna. You're fantastic, and thanks for all the love that you've shown me in the Waffle Press and the encouragement. I appreciate it. Okay, moving on to Dice Camera Action episode 94. Let's talk about what works and what irks. First thing that I want to talk about that I think works is Captain Diath. Okay. I liked it. I liked that Diath took the wheel, and I was laughing in chat because Diath picked the wheel, and people were like, "Oh, Diath, take the wheel!" And I was laughing because I was thinking of the Jesus Take the Wheel song. Everybody in chat was making fun of it. Thank you, chat, for entertaining me. I was laughing. It was awesome. So anyway, that reminded me a little bit of who Diath is, and I liked that because I thought it was Chris's way of reminding Diath that that's what he does. Diath steps up and he takes the reins. That's his role in the Waffle Crew. When Evelyn is unapproachable or she comes on too strong, Diath is kind of the voice of reason or the moderating power. When Strix is going nuts and she's not able to function, Diath steps up and takes care of her. When Paulton's drunk off his, what, Diath is the one who steps in and he plays not just father, but he plays the stable figure. So, that being the case, it was nice to see Chris or bring that opportunity where Diath is able to do what he does, I guess, to play the dad, to be the father, to be the leader. And then, you had Evelyn backing that up, which I thought was really interesting when Evelyn told him, you're really a natural leader, Diath. And I think, he forgets that. And it's difficult because with Paulton having stepped up a lot more lately to participate in what's going on as Nate the player has become more comfortable with role play, and with Dungeons and Dragons in general, it's been eroding a little bit, I think, on Jared's character's role in the party. And so, I don't know, it's interesting. And then seeing Evelyn take the spotlight, and Evelyn lead in a lot of way with killing the Soulmonger and whatnot, and then having Strix become so wildly popular. Obviously, Strix is the most popular member of the party to date, even though Evelyn is climbing, to a close second on her. It was a nice moment for Diath. I thought it was really funny, too, that he had Diath go shirtless and Diath is getting buff. And I'll tell you why I think he did that. Because I think we discovered that evil Diath was maybe a little bit cooler. Sorry, Jer. Love you, Conominator. But I think everybody kind of just thought evil Diath was a little bit cooler. Edgelord Diath in the Aladdin outfit with the the six pack and whatnot. Maybe he was a little bit more popular because he was a little bit more defined as a character in that way. I'm not sure, or maybe not. I don't know. I still like the idea that I discussed on the previous theme of Diath the Mad Angel. I think I would have liked to have seen him explore madness a little bit. Boy, that would have given a niche to his character. Now he's kind of back to playing the father of the party, and he's back to playing straight man, which is what Jared felt Diath was needed for, that he's stated before in interviews. So I don't know, interesting, but good to see him have the opportunity to even things out by stepping up and taking the reins of leadership. And edgelording with the shirt off a little bit. So anyway, just funny. Something now. There are a lot more things that I think that work, but let's jump into something that I think irks. And poor Nate. If Paulton takes a lot of heat, and I don't know how much he addresses of that. I mean, Nate won't give me the time of day. I don't know how many people that he does give the time of day to, which is fine. But it's interesting to me. So things that irk is Paulton running the Troll Academy and teasing everybody, and breaking the fourth wall is fine. I thought that was funny. I enjoyed it. I was laughing too with people in the chat making the Deadpool comparison like they're the first people to make it. Like, look at my edgy comment. I was like, yeah, that's pretty. We were saying that like several episodes ago, and I kind of like that Paulton did that. I thought it was good sense of humor. But this idea where he's teasing people, particularly when it culminated with him, watching Strix make a fire to cook the fish since the food stores were rotten on the boat. And he says to Strix, "Oh, you can control this fire. This fire you've got under control." Well, it was her fireball that killed Simon. So I mean, it was. Anyway, it was kind of but when he said that, I was like, man, that's so ugly. That's so mean. So I thought that was particularly interesting, but a little disturbing too. So I don't know, that just kind of bugged, and whatever. But that part I felt like was him just really being a cack all over again. And so I thought about that a little bit. I thought, but it irked me. I was like, why is he like doing that? I was like, that's what bullies do. Paulton's running around finding the weaknesses in everybody around, maybe to distract from his own weaknesses. I was a teacher for 15 years, and having been a teacher for 15 years, I can tell you that what they say about bullies is the truth. They are running around trying to cast a light on other people's imperfections in order to kind of, hopefully make sure that no one ever sheds more light on their imperfections, because they don't like themselves. Deep down, most bullies hate themselves, right? So that being the case, I started wondering, like, why is Paulton doing this? And is Nate doing it on purpose? Or is Nate just kind of like trying to be funny, and that's the way that he's choosing to, find humor? I don't know. I'm curious about that. Brings up questions that I have for Nate. Now, I'll tell you what I wanted to see happen. I wanted, and I've said this before in previous streams, and of course, I think Anna has to play her own character, but I tell you what I want to see. Paulton, he's experienced some growth, but these just horrible moments. Diaz said he was an a-hole. I want to see Evelyn crotch kick him. That's what I want to see. And don't think that means that I'm not, rooting for the ship, because, I am. At the end of the day, I want to see Paulton repent. I want to see him realize what a good thing he has in having someone like Evelyn love him. How lucky is anybody to have someone like Evelyn love them, right? So we all want him to have this moment of realization where he appreciates her and realizes, dang, I'm pretty friggin' lucky that I have Evelyn in my life. So so I'm still rooting for it. But that being said, I wanna see her just knock him into next week. And the reason I want to see that is because I want him to get the idea that he can't mistreat his family. And that he can't just behave however he wants to, but there will be consequences, and that there are other fish in the sea for her. So anyway, that being said, it just irks. So I started thinking about that a little bit more. Also, Paulton is boozing it up again, and it's not like this is what he does. Paulton gets into a difficult circumstance like the Ring of Winter, and his coping mechanism is to get sloshed and to hide, and now he's also hiding in sarcasm and casting the light on everybody else, And so I'm wondering if this is not, Paulton's coping mechanism for the bomb incident, More so even, I think Paulton is also trying to cope with the fact that he's vulnerable, and he's realizing that he's formed attachment. And we see lots of evidences of that with Paulton stepping forward and getting more actively involved in solving their problems by trying to, take care of the dragon turtle situation, by trying to, talk his way out of things, even interacting with the hags when he was, throwing things out to them, the candles, trying to trick. I mean, he's really been an active participant instead of Paulton's drunk under the table, and he's only going to take a turn when someone's in big trouble. And then the other thing is, we enter the moment where Diath is broken. Strix said Diath is broke. We broke Diath, with Trump, destroying the coast of Port Nyanzaru. And then he's throwing pebbles at his face. Now, I don't know if you guys remember this, but when Diath was upset previously and Strix caught him lying about things, she was throwing snacks at him while he was in the wagon, right? And Strix is throwing snacks at him, just throwing snacks, whatever. And so Paulton, Diaz kind of catatonic, and Paulton's throwing pebbles at him, keeping through. And to me, that was a sign that, Paulton is invested in Diaz. Even if he knows they don't get along, Diaz is, I've said this before, Diaz is everything Paulton hates himself for not being. And that being the case, I don't know. I find it interesting. So I wonder if he's boozing it up now because of because of the horrible thing that they just did, because he's vulnerable and because he's admitted to Evelyn. I don't know why I stay around. He's admitted that he is now attached to these three people, and he hates attachment. And he's talked about that before. When he gets really sloshed, he talks about how he hates the fact that he can't get away, he can't leave you, and he calls them lunatics. And I'm like, he fits really well into the party. Let me just put it that way. Mr. Kettle, pot, blackness calling. Yeah. Anyway. So it's interesting to me, that we have that moment, that Paulton is behaving this way. So, but it irks, I have to say, it irks to see him go back to being drunk. I realize that's, it's in the Dice Camera action intro. It's such a part of his character. And I guess the question is, who would Paulton be without booze, right? What would his character be, and where would the development of his character go? I don't know if Nate's thinking about that. And then in the back of my mind, now that Nate has two D&D streams that he is, involved in, one of them that he is part of the creative force behind, in the back of my mind, I'm wondering, is he being a cack to the rest of the party because he's trying to find a way out of the stream? So I hope that's not the case. I do. And and I also wonder too. I mean, poor Nate. I'm awfully hard on Nate today, but I also wonder to myself, about his feelings and how much of Nate and Nate's feelings about friendships and relationships and I don't believe in mistakes and other. I wonder how much of that is Nate or how much of that is him planning a character. Being that he's new to D&D, I feel like we're getting a lot of Nate's personal beliefs about life, and about things in general, and maybe his own attachment issues. So I don't know. It's interesting, right? I know we're psychoanalyzing, but it begs the question. It's something I'm curious about. So I don't know. I'll keep paying attention. I hope he sticks around. I feel like Paulton's a big part. I do want to see the ship work out. So there's that. So let's move on to something I thought that worked. I really liked the whole Omen drawn letter. I know that there are some people that really don't like Omen. Adam, I know you don't love Omen drawn. I understand that we have our ship and Omen's kind of getting in the middle of it, but I loved watching Evelyn and Strix fangirl over this letter that appears in Strix's hat, for a couple of reasons. We know Omen is far more famous than any member of the Waffle crew, although I think that may change with Evelyn, with Saint Evelyn. So we'll see, but at least, in Faerun. I mean, obviously the Skiziks and the Lorcatha are probably far more famous on the plains than Acquisitions Incorporated ever would be. Although I would not be the least bit surprised to find out that if there was an Acquisitions Incorporated extraplanar branch. So anyway, that being said, I loved it for a few reasons. Omen's more famous. He's a powerful cleric. He's an important person in Waterdeep, being that he is one of the Masked Lords. And also, he resurrected Evelyn, so it's natural that there would be an attachment. It's easy to form an attachment with your caretaker, right? So that is something that I have found to be particularly interesting. I also want to see where it goes because I love the giggling girl moments between the two sisters, between Strix and Evelyn. It's hard to get that kind of normal experience with Strix because she shuns like those normal moments. You know what I mean? Strix finds them difficult. She finds touch difficult. She finds normal interactions and relationships to be difficult. So I find that to be interesting. I do love that moment when they're able to have the bond, when Strix forgets about her insecurities long enough for her and Evelyn to just share a kind of a girly moment together or whatever. It's a human moment. I like it. So anyway, I like that. Now, the other reason I like it is the exact reason why a lot of you hate it. Because you see it as interfering with the Evilton ship. Now, here's my deal with that. I feel like Paulton needs a reality check, and he needs to know that she is not going to stick around to be abused, and that I still want to see him repent, wake up. I want to see the kiss the girl moment. These are things that I want to see. But that being said, I am still in favor of the ship. I just think that there's no way that Evelyn and Paulton happens. There's no way that it develops until there's a change in Paulton. Evelyn deserves better, okay, for one. All women deserve better from their men, for one thing. And in addition to that, I think that Evelyn needs to get comfortable in her own skin. So I don't feel like that whole situation can move forward until they've both grown. You can't give love easily to another person until you've learned to love yourself. And it's not because you're not capable of loving and appreciate them, but it's because real love is it's not necessarily dependent upon another person, but a deep relationship with person involves mutual respect. You can love people, but there's limits to how much love you can have for them. If they don't return that love, you can't really get to know the other person until you kind of have a reciprocal relationship. That's kind of basic psychology, but I also think that's basic psychology with God too. I think when you serve God, the Bible, Jesus talks about how knoweth the man the master that he has not served, right? So God may love you, an infinite amount, but until you serve him, you don't really come to know him, and you don't really come to love him until you serve him. And that's something that Jesus talked about frequently when he spoke about, the idea of what you do when you serve God's children. You're really serving him. And so it counts for twice. That's one of the things I taught my 11-year-old and my other kids, that whenever you do a kindness for God's children, you're really doing kindness to your Father in heaven, right? So anyway, just kind of basic psychology and spiritual thoughts. I have them on this show occasionally. Just something that's running through my head. Okay, moving on. Other things that work. I really did like Evelyn's talk with Diath for a number of reasons. It's obvious that Evelyn is unsettled, and that's natural because she doesn't know who she is now that she is considering this dynamic shift in her thoughts, right? And I think that's really important. And I have to say, props to Anna on this. And I know I'm partial to Anna and her character, but props to Anna on this for the way that she's playing it, because the deal is Evelyn is unsettled and she doesn't know who she is. She says to Diath, can you tell me what I'm feeling? She doesn't know what she's feeling. She doesn't understand her own emotions. Well, once you've had some life experience and, maybe you've been through a midlife crisis. For those of you who are younger viewers, it's something to understand that when you realize that you need more, that you need to change, that you need to, I would say, repent. But when you realize that you can't be the same you that you've always been, it is something that is really dramatically powerful in your mind, because what you have to do is negotiate the balance between the wiser you that you are trying to become and the core of who you are. And that's really difficult. And that's something that we're watching Evelyn go through right now. I've had that experience, and I can tell you from personal experience, it is incredibly unsettling, and it leaves you without peace in your own mind. Your own mind, Holly talks about this all the time, your own mind becomes a battlefield. There's no safe place in your head, because you start looking at yourself and saying, there are things that I need to change. There are things I want to be better. I want to follow this person's example, or, it's time for me to stop drinking, or, it's time for me to, reach out and form new relations. Well, Evelyn has realized, I need maybe to not rush into suicidal situations in the name of challenging evil. Anna plays her that way because she knows that that's how Evelyn feels. Evelyn will confront evil, which is one of the things we love about her character. But now she's having to step into that wiser realm of religious service or spiritual service, where she realizes, okay, maybe boldly confronting evil is not the greatest way to defeat evil every time, right? It's the easiest way to do. When your only solution is a sledgehammer, every problem becomes a nail, right? Well, I think Evelyn's finding out that every problem isn't a nail. And not only that, but she's also, I mean, because that's what Paulton said to her, like, during that conversation, he says, he tells her that you don't think what it does to us when we watch you throw your life away. And she does, because it's easy. It's easy. It's so easy to lose yourself in godly service and not have to say what is a healthy balance. That's much harder. And so Evelyn is not only having to find that healthy balance of, okay, do I rush in now or am I just gratifying my own pride? Whoa, of course she has no peace in her mind. And in addition to that, her saying she doesn't know who she is. If she's not that person who always does the quote unquote right thing, then who is she? How does she find this balance between the wiser version of herself that realizes, hey, I need to take my family into consideration before I go throwing my life away? And in addition to that, the core of who she really is, which is someone who confronts evil, someone who has such faith in the light that she not only doesn't care if she dies, but she has faith that if Lathander does not empower her to defeat the evil, then her sacrifice will be worth it. How do you balance those two things out? So it'll be interesting to see how Anna tries to balance that out. I'm not sure how she's going to do it, to be honest with you. I don't know, how she's going to find that balance. I do feel like Evelyn should not go too far away from the core of her positivity. I feel like that is one of the places where we got to know her, where people thought she was just annoying, but I really liked it. I liked that she was like, well, I'm just going to find the sunshine in this situation, and it doesn't matter how dark things are because I know that the light of the, and maybe it's Barovia that brings that out of you, right? Like how, that Barovia brings out the Evelyn in all of us, those of us who have an Evelyn in us. So I'm interested to see how Anna's going to work this out. And it'll be curious to see, how this moves forward with the plot that we have for this season of Dice Camera Action. I'm curious. I wonder what it's going to be like. Okay, so I do think that works, though, her talk with Diath, where, she's unsettled. She's not sure who she is. She doesn't really know if she's brave or if she's strong or, whatever. You get the idea. But it was a good talk. It was interesting. And I like, it's always funny too, because Anna as a player will she's always like, you can tell she's like waiting because she wants to throw out how Evelyn is feeling. She always describes what Evelyn's doing, how Evelyn is feeling, and how easy she is to read. You don't ever have to make a perception check on Evelyn because she wears her expressions and her emotions on her sleeve, right? So, Evelyn does not require, insight checks. Let me just put it that way. Which is interesting. So I love that about Anna. I know it irks other people, and these are all performers, so everybody's always looking for the spotlight. And so, but I think Strix and Evelyn find it really easy to describe what their characters are doing, and because they want to be on the stage, It's interesting. I think Paulton is now getting to that point where Nate is comfortable doing that also. Anyway, I like that. Other things that I think that work. Okay, I think we all kind of just collectively melted when Strix said to Diath, home is wherever you are. And I'm like, oh, home is wherever you are. Oh my gosh, don't let go, Jack. Titanic music swell. I'm like, anyway, it was this sweet moment. And then all Diath can manage to do is look down at her hand. And I was laughing because in the back of my head, I started thinking that may be the only part of her body that's been cleaned in the last who knows how many years, The only thing she bathes in is goat blood. And the only reason she washes her hands is because she's cooked before. She was a pastry chef, right? So anyway, I was laughing, but I liked that moment. And I am not a Striath fan per se. I feel like, well, it's not that I don't like it. I mean, I enjoy it plenty enough. But I still feel like there are huge barriers. Obviously, Diath, I think Diath is not only maybe pure and chaste, shall we say, but has Diath learned to look at girls? Does Diath like the girls yet? I just think it's funny. She says this heartwarming, touching thing, and all he can do is like look at her hand and be like, go jinkies, So Anyway, I think that's funny. But then again, I will say it's difficult for those things to develop when you're so focused on just surviving, right? So anyway, that's interesting. It was a nice moment. It was a sweet human moment, and I liked it. Warmth between the two of them is some of the most genuine in the campaign. Even if it's not a ship, even if it's really just caretaker, which is how I view their relationship. I view it as older brother caretaker of younger unstable sister, although he certainly wasn't stable on the ship. So anyway, he got that way. Moving on. Other things that I think work. I like the GIF, the whatever you call it. Hippo Man. I like Hippo Man. I think he's funny. I thought Chris's choice to make him have a British accent, but not only that, but to sound like a British colonel from the Empire's era of expansion. They say the sun never sets on the British Empire, and that was a phrase that they used to say because there was no part of the world where Britain didn't have a colony, or Britain didn't own or hadn't conquered a part of the land. So the sun was, wherever the sun was shining on Earth, it was always shining on a part of the British Empire, right? So having him come from that era, be a soldier, I really like that. I thought it was interesting. The pictures that they show of gifts are usually in kind of safari clothing, right? And there's that whole, British takeover of India, Mowgli kind of Jungle Book, British presence. So I like that. I thought it's an interesting choice. Kind of like Orlais is French, in Dragon Age. So I do like that. I think it brings in, it humanizes and makes us able to relate to the character in a way that we otherwise wouldn't be able to. To some people, maybe more snootier people, it feels like a cheap knockoff when you inject that much Earth culture into a fantasy setting, but I think it makes the setting more relatable. And it makes it fun. We can all enjoy it. So I like that. Anyway. I like the GIF. I thought it was funny when he asks Strix. He's like, Strix can clean him up. She presses his uniform with prestidigitation, and he looks at how filthy she is, and he's like, are you somehow impervious to your own magic? And she's like, maybe I am. And she's just fire on her hand. And all the rest of us are thinking, we're just, where's the Instabath? So I don't know. It made me laugh. It was definitely giggle worthy. I liked it. Sweet moment. But there you go. I also made a joke. I mean, it is just a joke because I thought Paulton was sure laying on the hippo jokes and the hippo criticism, and he found a new object to tease with. So I started joking. I actually made a comment on Waffle Talk to Sean. I said, do you maybe see a future with Paulton romancing the hippo, like Paul Tippo? And so anyway, I made him laugh, which was my goal. Anyway, I just thought it was funny. So Paul Tippo is just a joke. The idea of Paulton romancing the Hippo Man. Although Paulton is weird enough to where I don't think. I mean, if Construct Evelyn isn't going to turn him off, then I don't think romance with a hippo is off the table, right? I'm not really shipping that. I just think it's funny. So Paul Tippo for the win, y'all. Anyway. So that was a joke. So jumping into a few more things here that I wanted to talk about is this whole idea of the Snake People ship. Ship, like sailing ship that Paulton flies out to, which, by the way, I thought was so lame. I mean, Paulton flies out there and the exchange, I'm like, Nate, what are you doing? Like, you're not getting any information. You're just kind of like, you're just kind of like flying out there to see if it's hostile. Well, of course it's hostile, okay? The ship on the horizon, of course it's hostile. It's Chris, There's been too much, happy-go-lucky. The worst thing that's happened is the food has rotted. This is dice camera action. The ship is hostile, okay? So, but he doesn't really find anything. He doesn't, try to intimidate them. He's just, I'm like, whatever. So I thought that whole kind of exchange was dumb. Wasn't really an opportunity for Chris to be able to show much of who those people on the ship are. I'm curious about them. But it does bring up ideas of the Yuan-Ti. The Yuan-Ti are, they're snake people, which is really interesting. For those of you who don't know, if you've never played Neverwinter Nights, which was, I think, one of the most famous games that BioWare ever, D&D games that they ever put out. I don't know if it's quite on par with Baldur's Gate. That's Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance or Shadows of Amn. I think those were maybe their biggest games. But in Neverwinter Nights, the expansion in the Storm, I think it's, what is it called, Storm of Zahir or something like that, you are kind of introduced to the idea that there's this new snake deity in the Forgotten Realms. Now, you get a little bit more info if you get, I think it might be the Forgotten Realms campaign guide. The Yuan-Ti have a deity, okay, and his name is Sesseth, all right? And Sesseth, I think he gets a mention in Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, but Sesseth is their serpent deity. In the Powers and Pantheons book that I've shown in my previous streams, he's also called Mershok, and he has, a few other, I think pseudonyms that he goes by. But it's interesting because Seth is, the way that they've kind of like understood him in 4th edition. They were trying to make the deity Zahir more prominent. He was going to be the new snake deity. And so the idea was that he had somehow managed to trap Seth in his sleep in his cave. Well, Seth is prone to hibernating, being a snake god anyway. However, Seth has been sending, we learn in the book, Seth has been, trapped on his plane. He's been trapped in a magical sleep. He's been trapped somewhere. And the idea is that Zahir is trapping him and trying to take his worshippers and subsume his power. But the thing is, Zahir just wasn't that interesting. Oh, look, it's another snake god who has dominion over serpents and poison and lies. How original. So, I felt like Zahir was kind of like, dry him off, paint him a different color, and oh look, it's another snake god, right? So I don't know. Maybe it was their idea to make the story interesting that one snake god is trying to subsume another. I do feel like if you've ever seen the cartoon Conan the Adventurer, I feel like they do a really good job of portraying a snake god. With Set, they call him Set in that one. And he's really quite interesting. Set has Rathamon in that cartoon, and he grants Rathamon the power of this black serpent ring, and it's particularly interesting. So that being said, it's an interesting idea that these snake people are, what are they doing? Are they worshippers of Sethis or Zahir? Why are they after Acquisitions Incorporated? Granted, it could be because of the coastline and the flood, but it seems to me like the Yuan-Ti would be more inclined to take advantage of that than to seek revenge for it, unless it was some kind of religious revenge, right? So I don't know. I'm curious to see where this goes. I'm not sure what it's about. I don't know. I'm find it curious. So I wonder where we're going to go with that. Anyway, curious, interesting, not sure what that means. I do wonder a little bit about Lady Esvele Rosnar, who was friends with Captain Ortome, who I guess was that little gnome captain. I do wonder about her, and I wonder how she is. There's this mention of her. I think she might be the lady who, in the intro, is kicking the coins. And is meant to be one of their villains. I wonder, and what angle is Chris going to push with this? So if we can jump down the rabbit hole, I'm thinking that maybe it's revenge. Maybe she blames them for the death of Captain Ortome. Because Chris did that on purpose. Why would he have, that maybe kills two birds with one stone? Chris just randomly offs the captain of the ship, and what's the purpose behind that? Well, it gives Diath a chance to get out of his catatonia, for one. And another reason, it opens up this idea maybe of a noble who wants revenge on the Waffle crew. Anyway, the temporary captain, I don't remember what his name is, he asks Diath to go speak to her on his behalf because he's terrified of her. Well, if he's terrified of her, then I imagine he's more than just snooty, okay? So my thought is that maybe this noble lady is one of the villains. Maybe she's one of the masked lords of Waterdeep, but she's an evil one. So I don't know. I'm curious about that. I'm curious to see where Chris takes it. It should be exciting. But I'm very curious. I think that'll be, if nothing else, I think it'll make for some interesting role play, having the Waffle crew come report to this noble lady, knowing that they're all crazy, and who knows what they'll do. Is Paulton going to be sober at that time? Is Strix going to have a panic attack and start blurting things out? Is Evelyn going to boldly step forward and try to simplify something that's actually very complex, which she tends to do, and it makes things funny. So I am very curious. I cannot wait until we have this kind of encounter with this noble lady. So I'm curious to see where that will go. I do think she's the villain kicking the coins in the intro. We'll see. Okay, so I want to finish up today talking a little bit about bird droppings, which is my segment where we talk about Trapped in the Birdcage. So we had the season finale, 11 episodes, the season finale of Trapped in the Birdcage, which is Holly Conrad, who plays Strix's other stream. If you don't like spoilers, then I think you should probably tune out at this point if you haven't caught up yet, and maybe check in later to get my thoughts on it. But here's your moment to check out. So we got the season finale of Trapped in the Birdcage. It's been really interesting. I feel like we're watching Holly get her feet wet as a DM streamer, and I feel like we're watching her going through some growing pains from moving from portraying one character to having to shape the entire campaign. And allowing the players to shape the campaign. So that's interesting. What we had in this last episode was them finding this, basically illithid brain creature. And it's gross because this illithid brain creature floats up off of the surface and is like the bottom half of it is a swarm of cranium rats. Ugh. Okay, so first of all, it's gross, okay? But one of those cranium wraps falls off of this brain creature, and we find out that it's Stinky, right? So it becomes the origin story of Stinky as the Crowbar crew. They're still trying to decide if that's their name. As we determine if the Crowbar crew is going to take it out, right? So it's interesting. Oddly enough, they have a bomb that they're going to use to kill this thing, and I'm like, okay. We're borrowing a little bit, I think, but whatever. So I don't know. I didn't like that particularly. But I tell you what I did like is they're fighting this brain creature, right? And it's really, really funny because in the middle of the stream, I started trying to get Nejma to make up her own spell. I was calling it Nejma's Flaming Gaze because the bomb had to be lit on fire. And so I was laughing my butt off because I was telling Hadil, who plays Nejma, I was telling her, I was like, make up your own spell and call it Nejma's Flaming Gaze and see what Holly does. See if Holly buys it, if Holly goes with it. Chris will sometimes reward you when you're creative like that. I also think Nejma being a pyromaniac, I could see her creating her own fire spells. I could see Nejma being able to light a bomb on fire with a gaze. So I started throwing out these, different ideas. Other people were writing it. And in the middle of the stream, Holly goes, everybody in chat is talking, or not everybody, she's like, a bunch of people in chat is talking about Nejma's Flaming Gaze. Are you making up spells? I thought, well, she's not doing it, but I am. Anyway, it was funny. I laughed. I liked it. And Hadil, she kind of had the spotlight stolen because Hadil has this bomb and she tries to light it and the wick was wet. So she went to light it and it sputtered out. Well, then Saturn, the bard, comes over and uses prestidigitation and he lights it on fire. When Nejma had tried to light it on fire with a freaking firebolt, right? So she can't do it with a firebolt and he comes along and does it with prestidigitation. And he's so proud of himself that, Nejma's like, oh, I can't be mad. I'd be jealous, but he's so proud of himself that we just got to leave it there. So I laughed. I thought it was really funny. I enjoyed that part. And then they throw the bomb and they blow up the brain creature and, yada, yada, yada. So anyway, it was kind of funny. I do want to see more of Nejma. She's an elf. So if we wanted one of these characters to, I guess you could say, if we wanted one of these characters to guest star on Dice Camera Action, Nejma will be alive, right? So it doesn't matter if Trapped in the Birdcage is a prequel show, Nejma's an elf, so she'll still be alive. She ran into young Strix. That does not mean that, that she couldn't show up. Will, I think it's Saturn or human. And so I don't know, and that they will still be around. Reader could guest star. I don't think he's interesting enough yet to guest star, but Reader could guest star. He's an automaton, so he's a Warforged, and who knows? I mean, he just has to replace his parts, right? So anyway, interesting. I liked it. I liked Nejma throwing the bomb in. Her character is still just hilarious to me. Will's character is not quite as interesting, but we do end on kind of a cliffhanger, and I liked that. The idea that Will has this, person that she, you steal from the wrong person. Will steals from everybody, everywhere she goes, and Holly has planned. She's got tables and charts, so she likes it. But Will, it doesn't matter what the situation is. Will's coping mechanism is she's going to steal from people, and her joy is stealing from people, and her hobby is stealing from people, and she's pretty much just a kleptomaniac. So we have a kleptomaniac, we have a pyromaniac, we have a queen man-whore, and then this innocent little golem creature, this little warforged that they're trying to teach to lie, and he's lying for so he's learning how to be a bad person, which is hilarious because the three of them are just kind of awful people. But anyway, it's it's funny. We ended also with the Mercy Killers hunting for Will, and interestingly enough, I thought Jimmy Wetzel did a really good job. He comes up to the Mercy Killers and he starts flirting with them like big time heavy, trying to get them to forget about Will, that they're looking for Will. The Mercy Killers are the police force in Sigil, just so you know. And so I thought it was interesting that the Mercy Killers, anyway, it was a good job, and Holly liked it so much that she actually gave him advantage. And I really liked that, and I will tell you, I liked that. I thought, way to go, Holly. That is what Chris does. When your character wants to do something outside of the box that doesn't really fit within the rules or necessarily make sense, but you go out on a creative limb, a good DM should honor that, If your character, rather than grabbing his flaming sword, decides that he wants to slam the two, pewter pots into the guy's head, let him daze the guy for a round. Let him stun the guy, or make it a hard, attack AC, but honor the creativity. And because that's what you want to do. It makes for a far more interesting story than I cast Fireball, I lose 20 hit points. He hits me with a longsword, I lose 10 hit points. I mean, that's fun too, and it can be exciting, but it's not as exciting as spontaneous combat. That kind of creativity, I feel like when a DM rewards that, you're encouraging your players to not only think outside the box, but be creative. So, anyway, I thought Trapped in the Birdcage ended it pretty well. We saw Little Strix again, and we got this version of Stinky, the origin story of Stinky. I got to tell you, I feel like that is something that maybe irks, and I will tell you why. A DM's job is to spotlight the characters. And while I don't have a problem with Holly weaving Strix's backstory in, I don't feel like the characters themselves have had enough time to shine. Their backstories, who they are, I don't feel like that's something that Holly has really excelled at this season of Trapped in the Birdcage, and I feel like it's something that she really needs to work on. Strix is interesting. She's famous. She'll certainly, I mean, if you know that there are going to be nods to Strix in Trapped in the Birdcage, it might bring more viewers in. Dice Camera Action gets 11,000 views. Trapped in the Birdcage is getting, several hundred, depending on when. But it's worth a watch. Watching Holly improve as a DM, but that's something that I would focus on, is really not showcasing Strix because she's comfortable with showcasing Strix, but focusing on creating creative opportunities for the party members to really shine, to show who they are. Why not have somebody come in and try to hire Will to steal something? Why not? I mean, boy, breaking and entering, way to go. Why not come in and give Nejma, Nejma gets to throw the bomb, but, why not have somebody come in who wants her to set fire to a building? Why not have Reader's brothers come after him. I mean, there's just a lot more that I feel like Holly needs to do in order to help her characters to shine, the party members to shine. So, however, she's new to this. She's new to streaming, and I don't think she's new to DMing per se, but I think that DMing on a live stream show is very different. I do think she did a lot of things well. I do think she needs to develop her story a little bit more. Right now, it feels like random encounters that Crone, Maiden, and Mother, who are these were-raven trios, are sending her out to do. It's interesting, but she needs to work on also building motivation. Because right now they're trapped in the birdcage. They're trapped there. They don't really have much of motivation to do this because the were-ravens have now admitted that they can't get them home. And if they can't get them home, why the hell would they do anything for them? So, there's a huge lack of motivation here, and that motivation has to come from the characters' backgrounds. You got to build it into it, or agree ahead of time with the players. So something that needs to be brought to bear, right? Everybody's got to have a reason for listening to Lady Eladrin or whatever. Everybody's got to have a reason for working for Omen. They're getting paid. It's something like that, So I mean, they do get rewarded, but they want to go home. This is like the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon. Oh my gosh, we're trapped in this horrible world, and yeah, it's really cool. There's magic, but get me out of here. It's crazy, right? So, and we're in danger all the time. So I don't know. It's interesting. So that little snippet that we get at the end with somebody hunting for Will because she's broken, something from Will's past. That's the most we've seen, I think, like that, and we need to see more of it. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Those are my bird droppings. Overall, I have to say, I hope they get picked up for another season. I don't know if Holly knows if they're going to, or if she is just saying she's hoping that they do. But I hope that Trapped in the Birdcage gets picked up. I want these players. I want to see more of who they are. Right? Obviously, I want to see more of Nejma. I think Hadil is hilarious, and the whole idea of this pyromaniac elf who looks down her nose at humans, like my mother warned me that humans were disgusting. She's so funny, and Hadil plays her so well. And I want to know who Will screwed over. Who is the one mark that sent Will running? So anyway, there you go. Those are my thoughts on Trapped in the Birdcage. Those are my thoughts on Dice Camera Action. A lot of good viewing this weekend, and I'm excited for this continuing season of Dice Camera Action. And for now, I am Sage of Sorcery, and you can follow me on Sage of Sorcery 1. I'm at Sage of Sorcery, Matthew at Sage of Sorcery 1 on Twitter. And my YouTube channel is the Sage of Sorcery YouTube channel. So if you want to rewatch this or watch any others, you can catch me there. Feel free to follow me on Twitter or to follow me, subscribe on YouTube. I would love to hear from you. If you have any comments, I will post this to the Dice Camera Action subreddit. So feel free to leave your comments there. I look forward to them. Even if you disagree with me, I don't find it threatening. I just find it interesting. It's fun to have the discussion. So this is Sage of Sorcery signing off as usual and saying there are more of us now than there are of them. Have a good weekend. Bye.